What's happening? This is Ryan Dawkins, and you're tuning in to The Loft.
Have brought out the best of me.
It's good to have somebody in radio.
Let's go.
Welcome to The Loft, bro. I appreciate you coming in, dude. It's definitely been a long time coming, bro.
Yeah, totally. You've had a few of my friends on. I remember when you started this, and you had Nine and Nugget in. Yeah, man, it's cool. The place is beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Also, welcome
bro.
to BTA.
Oh shit, let's go. What's this?
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh hell yeah.
Yeah, so BTA, that's our new clique. This is what we're doing. It's me and you know Nick Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Yeah.
a fellow Temple grad, right?
Yeah.
So we're getting in the wrestling business.
Yeah, I peeped that. You got some events coming up, right?
Yeah, well, that's kind of how it happened. It was sort of accidental.
Yeah.
It all came together because, first off, you know the Philly captain. The Philly captain, you know, the guy with the horrible voice who goes to the Phillies game, you know?
Yeah.
So he challenged me to a match at the Northern Liberties Rec Center. This is happening April 25th.
Oh, so you're competing. You're getting in the ring.
Yeah, well, I'm not. I got a team. He's got a team, I got a team. Now, the losing team, the manager's got to get their head shaved, and that's what's happening with the captain. I'm shaving his ugly ass head. 1000%.
Wait, that's amazing.
So my clique is the BTA crew, right? So, when this started to happen, and Nick and I do everything together. We tackle everything from a physical, digital front. When we're on site, we're there, we're taking over, and leading up to, Nick is a wizard when it comes to whipping up all the artwork.
Yeah, he's a talented man. I've been seeing his stuff around, and that's hilarious.
1000%. So when that started to happen, then we were like, hey, we wanted to throw this WrestleMania watch party. Well, what branding do we do it under? BTA.
BTA, I like that a lot.
So we started rolling it out, and now, there's a couple other organizations within Philadelphia that are in the wrestling community that have taken an L recently, and we're cool with a lot of those people, so we're like, hey, why don't we assemble our own little faction here? Why don't we start running events and eventually running some matches? So eventually BTA will mean belt to ass for real.
You know what, bro? I like that a lot because I think it has a lot of potential to expand to just getting other people interested in wrestling, if that makes sense. You know what instantly kind of brings me to that is how Logan Paul transferred from influencer content to full-time wrestling.
For sure.
Obviously he's a freak of nature, but it's cool because what it can do, the way I look at it is it build personalities up. You're already a personality on the radio. It's now you can be a personality wrestling and make it into something like that. You get what I mean?
It's an extension of what we do, right? So it gives you more and first off, we have a passion for it.
Right.
You
love
so
wrestling,
if you're into it, then you want to be a part of that, and this is the best way possible. Plus, it goes along with what I do for a living day in, day out is cool, and I love it, and iHeart's cool, and my whole situation's good. But, I want to be the mayor of this city. I want to run Philadelphia from a media front. I want to be that dude. And it takes time. You got to put in the hours with a city like this. And one of the things that is near and dear to this city is the history of pro wrestling. And so that's my way of showing that, hey, look, I love you back, Philly.
I like that. I like that, bro. I think when it comes to stuff like that, it's good to get especially with the roots of Philly. I always say Philly's the best city in the world. I grew up here, and it's it's one of those things where I believe that with its sports, with its entertainment, with it has so much potential to be a huge juggernaut as a major city. So I like that you're taking that kind of step of I'm taking the wrestling step. I'm going to take the voice, be the voice and all that stuff. So I think it's pretty sick. I'm excited.
The other thing is when it comes to the format in which I work, which is a lot top 40 and that type of stuff, I'm getting old, bro. I'm about to be 39 in a few weeks.
Yeah.
I've done not that I don't love it still, and it's fun when I get to do hosting clubs and parties and stuff.
Yeah.
But I did that, and the game has changed, and I'm not really trying to hold on to something like that. I'm trying to like roll my branding and my personality into things that make sense for me. I'm about to be a dad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm married, newly married. I'm trying to like really, you know, take ownership of all of that within, because part of what I do has to be an extension of who I am and what I'm going through in my life.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't want to, you know, so it's just all about making it work together.
Yeah, and it boils down to finding something you're passionate about, right? Something that you enjoy that like can make you wake up every day like, yo, about the ass, man, I fucking think about that shit every day.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
and that's the thing, you know, when you're building a brand, you gotta love it.
Yeah.
You know, so
wait, where did you grow up in Philly, or where are you from?
I grew up in Detroit.
In Detroit. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So then when did you come to Philadelphia?
First time, so I've had 2 runs in Philadelphia. I came to Philly the first time, I think in 2013 or 2012 maybe. I was working at Wired 96.5 back in the day. I used to do nights over there. And then eventually, that's actually where I became a first-time program director. And so I was here for about 3.5 years, and then they sold our station and like fired everybody. So I stayed for a little bit while working for a record label in New York. I would commute back and forth. And then I came back to the radio side, went to Indianapolis for a little bit, went to Tampa for a little bit, and that's where I joined iHeart. iHeart said, hey, why don't you take your ass back to Philly?
Yeah.
So it's interesting because, you know, Q102 when we were at Wired was the op.
Yeah. It was always 96 and Q102.
Yeah, so
you had B101 sprinkled in there too.
Yeah, right. But on the streets, it was on site.
Exactly.
You know, they used to put us. I remember the first Made in America. They put our tent next to their tent, and it was
shit.
it was on some army shit. Like,
Yeah.
men, we will not be outdone.
What was it? Dodgeball, Average Joe's, and the
yeah. Or like in Anchorman when the 2 news stations are beefing. So it's like, you know, when they would put us next to each other, and that was our opportunity to be like, no, I'm a stronger stitch. We got more lines, we got more activities, we got more going on. That, you know, that was a lot of fun to be a part of.
Yeah.
And then to come back to Philly when I came back in 2018, 19. It was cool. It was 19 for sure, but it was cool because it was like a Netflix reboot of like my first time in Philly, because there were people that used to work over here, and people I know that are dating this person or not dating this person.
Everything's switched around.
Yeah.
So you when you left, where'd you go? You went back to Detroit, or?
When I left, I did the Indianapolis for 2 years, went to Tampa for a year. That's when I joined iHeart. They popped me back.
Okay.
I was gone for about 3 years.
Okay, yeah. And was radio something you always wanted to do? Was that something you found yourself, or something you kind of fell into?
I don't know that it was necessarily radio. It was just, I know that what I'm doing now is kind of what I always sort of had envisioned. Even when I was a real little kid, I couldn't necessarily articulate who I wanted to be and how I wanted to get there and what I wanted to do. But I know that what I'm doing now, that kid is loving it. And I think that's it, right? Like, I knew I wanted to be in media. I knew I wanted to be a host. I knew I had those sort of like, when I was a little kid, I used to love getting pops from all the adults that were out. Like, I shouldn't have been at like keg parties with my uncles, but when those guys would start rolling, I'd be like, oh, I got this, you know? So that was, I guess, you know, I knew I always wanted to be an entertainer.
I love talking to people who just simply do things that they want to do, if that makes sense. Like, I'm 28, so I'm at the age now where a lot of people I notice are giving up on themselves, and it's just one of those things where like I said, like, I always find the older that I get, the more I realize that we're all just a bunch of small dots on a big rock who just want to figure it out. And I always try to, if you can make what you love to do into a job, or you know, make your passion to a job, I feel like that's like the ultimate. That's become, to me at least, the ultimate form of success. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I mean, I think we're here for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
You know, and I think as we get older, we learn that more and more, and we accept that more and more, that life is much shorter than we think it is.
Yeah.
So while you're here, you got to do this shit.
That's it. Yeah, just go all in.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly, bro.
Somebody's going to do it.
Somebody's got to do it, right? Someone's got to be their own biggest fan, bro. Someone's got to do it. So you're about to be a dad.
Yeah.
That's exciting stuff.
Yeah, I'm really excited, man. You know, you talk about like where you are at your age and seeing things, you know, I'm about 10 years older, but I went through the same things, and I saw a lot of my friends and even family members having kids a lot earlier than I did, and I would have to accept this as like, there's a while where I was like, wait a minute, am I just gonna be Uncle Buster for life?
Yeah.
You know, and I accepted that at one point.
Yeah.
But you start to go like, all right, like, all I focus on is my career. Is this ever gonna happen? And then finally, it's cool that, you know, with Jacqueline, my wife, we have established that. Like, from the jump, it felt like we were right there at the same point in our lives where it's like, let's go.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to have so much confidence in it. You know, I think for a long time it was like, well, if I hold out too long, you know, like,
right, it'll never come.
Yeah, well, that, or just like, do I want to have a baby too late and be an old man when the kid is like, you know, too old to throw the kid a ball?
Yeah, you're like 65 on his 25th birthday. Or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly. So you start to think about those things, but I think, you know, everybody's life and patterns are different, and you figure it out along the way.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm in the same boat in regards to how I feel. Like, to me, the dumbest question I can be asked is where I see myself in 5 years.
Yeah,
sucks. I'm just more of like a let's build the consistency. Let's let's just see where life takes you. You know what I mean? It can happen in any your life can go in any direction.
Especially because, like, for me, for a long time I was living my life 3 to 4 years at a time, because the way my business works out is they sign you to a contract that's usually 2 to 4 years, right? Depending. And a lot of times the sweet spot is 3 years. And for a while, it was really interesting because my life would be live out to a contract term, and then the station would want to rebrand or something like that, and it would move me to the next city and the next opportunity. Right. So for a while, that 5-year question bugged me out too, because it was like, well, I don't know, man. I'm living 3 years at a clip.
You literally don't know, because you're signed to stuff 3 years at a time.
Yeah.
So, like, is the radio industry, it's kind of maybe a redundant question, but is the radio industry, is it like, does it like a revolving door? Like, is it always changing? Like a volatile?
Yeah, well, it's always evolving.
Okay.
You know, like,
that's the way to put it. Yeah.
Like, the other thing too is you got to look at it like sports teams, right? Like, you know, again, contract terms, coaches. When a new coach comes in, they like to bring in their people, you know, and that tends to move things around. And that's kind of what I always felt was exciting about it. Yeah. You know, like, I didn't graduate high school, so like for me, getting to come out to explore. I've worked in cities and studios as small as Flint, Michigan, which at the time was like market 137, to as big as New York City, living and working in New York, which is market 1. And to be able to experience that coming from where I came from, and with that education level, it was my way out, and it was my opportunity to go and explore all these things. And now here I am. Embedded in the roots of Philadelphia now, I feel like finally, and I'm starting a family and all these sort of things, and it's like I would have never gotten to where I am in this city and had the experiences along the way that I did without the business. So yeah, it is always moving and shaking.
Yeah, so you didn't graduate high school.
I got a GED. Good enough diploma.
Good enough diploma, that's it. So, like, when did that opportunity come then for the radio? Like, when did you get your that first quote unquote break?
So radio was always an interesting thing to me, especially when you look back now. Like, there were things in my life as a kid where radio kind of was like a weird thing along the way. My mom had a lot to do with this. My mom is the one, I didn't graduate high school and I didn't go to college, but I did take broadcasting classes. And the reason why I did was because of my mom. And the reason why my mom knew I was into that shit was because when we would drive around, my mom and I were buddies. My mom had me real young, so we were buddies.
How old was she? You would estimate like
19,
okay.
20?
Okay, yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
And so you know, and you know, typical white trash Detroit story. The old man wasn't in the picture, right?
Yeah.
So my mom and I were buddies, and we would roll around all the time, and I would get these experiences with radio specifically. You know, there were things that I would hear where they were promoting events, and I would bug my mom like, "Hey, we got to go to this. This is gonna be cool."
Yeah.
You know, or there were times where, like, I remember we had this dude, his name was Dr. Don, and he was they launched this country station in the early 90s in Detroit. It's still there to this day, WYCD. And when it launched under Young Country, and it was at the time where all the old guys like George Jones and Johnny Cash were out, and the new people were like Shania Twain, Garth Brooks, Tim McGraw, and they were like edgy at the time.
Right.
So the station was all about playing the young country, and then in between the records, they were like dirty. They were like, the jocks on the station were like flamethrowers, and they were saying some shit.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the car and loving it, right? And I didn't like the music. And I would love listening to these jocks, and I remember, you know, some of them would be so dirty, and my mom would be like, "Oh, they're disgusting." And I would think to myself, "Yeah, but you listen to that shit when I'm not around."
In your head, like, you eat that shit up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I always kind of got a charge, and then, like, you know, there were more things like that along the way. So that was sort of like the foundation of the passion level. And then when I got kicked out of school, my mom was like, basically like, "Look, here's your only option. Go take these classes and go figure it out." And she was absolutely right. You know, it got me into an internship. It got me exactly where I needed to be. And then I moved pretty fast. I moved out to, so like I started 18, working in Detroit, interning in Detroit, worked in Toledo, Ohio, worked in Flint, Michigan, all in the first like year and a half.
So what, you were getting bounced around for internships? Or just...
No, I had an internship in Detroit and then got part-time gigs. Got a part-time gig in Toledo, Ohio, got a part-time gig in Flint, all in the first like year and a half. And that bubbled up to my first full-time gig, which is in Fresno, California. So I, at 20, hit the bus and took it all the way from Detroit to Fresno. Did that for a year. They sold our station, fired all of us. I went back to Detroit, but now the guys that I was working for in Fresno, the people that I interned for in Detroit, I had like a little something behind me.
Bit of a resume,
So they hired me back in Detroit where I used to intern. Worked there for about a year and a half, and then the boss was like, "Hey, by the way, we're fucking out. We're going to New York, and you're coming." So we all went to New York, and it was like, it happened so fast where it was like, you went from, wait a minute, I was just in Fresno. Now here we are in New York City. So did that for a run, and then that's when I came to Philly after about 4 years in New York.
Oh, wow. So how long you been in Philly for?
Collectively, like 13 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're embedded in this shit.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, and I want to be here for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, so like, what do you ever go back to when you were like that 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid, like just getting that opportunity? Like, do you ever take yourself back sometimes and like kind of look back and just be like, listen, oh shit, like I came this far and now I'm starting a family, I got a great career, got
all the time,
resume,
all the time. I mean, to some degree, you know, to some degree, there's a little bit of like pinch myself to make sure that this is all still real, because like I said, like there's still, I think what was kind of giving me my drive, my like whole adult life and my career and everything, was that I don't want to end up where I know I could end up. Because like, given, again, dropped out of school junior year, the people that came from my neighborhood were all fucking losers. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Bro.
I could have easily been in that. And you know, I think that's what sort of has made sure I've been like on my grind the entire time.
I mean, it's like a more of a fear of failure than a desire to succeed almost. You know what I mean?
Which is sort of hindered me from having relationships and building a family earlier, because I wasn't focused on that. I was always focused on the job. Now that I feel established, I can actually open that door.
I feel like we're pretty similar in that way. We're like, I'm more of a person who I want to make sure that, like, it's hard to explain, but I'm the kind of person that wants to make sure that I got everything, all my shit taken care of. I feel fulfilled in what I'm doing. I feel like I built a bit of a base for myself before I can go and start a family. Like that. I'm the opposite spectrum, where I was like, I feel like a lot of people, in order to feel that fulfillment, gotta start a family. If that makes sense.
Everybody's situation is
different, right? Yeah, it's different.
We all make decisions in life. I've always said, like, what has been a benefit for me was that I had the luxury of not being tied to anything. For a while, it was just me and my car. And then it was like me and my car and my dog. And then you start to like build your life up and put some equity within yourself and invest in yourself.
Yeah. Do you think like having not having a father figure, do you think that that changed things for you? Do you think that like shaped your life in a certain way?
Well, I did have a father figure. I had a stepdad for a long time before him and my mom got divorced. That's always such an interesting piece because he came. The relationship there is crazy because first off, there's no relationship anymore. But at the time that he came in my life, he was in my life for a long time, and at the time that he came in my life, was probably the perfect time that any male figure could have came into my life. I was real young. I think I was like 2 years old, and him and my mom got married, and basically we were a little happy family for a little while. But also, he was a fucking asshole, and like, but I say that to say that sort of like tough love, kind of like. It was horrible. Like, there's things where I'm like, God, I hate that motherfucker. Yeah. But then there's other things where I'm like, dude, if that guy wouldn't have been there at that time, giving me that tough love throughout that, who knows how I would have ended up? Yeah. Because I know how I am now. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Me without discipline, I don't know if I want to know that dude.
Yeah, nah, that's real. Because like I had a great dad, great father figure in my life. But I think about it a lot, and I've been watching a lot of like Charlie Kirk interviews where he does like the man on the street stuff. Yep. And they talk about like how a lot of things that's missing with this country right now is like the lack of a father figure, and it kind of leads in
1,000%
spouse and other things. That's why I wanted to ask you that. So like going into your fatherhood, are there things that you've learned growing up that you're gonna take into raising that child?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I mean, I think again, that's probably why it's taken me this long because like I've always been like, well, I know not to do this now because so I think I've already kind of laid the foundation of what not to do in a lot of ways, and now that I'm at the point in my life where I feel I'm more of a positive influence on anybody to where I feel like I'm gonna be a good force in that kid's life. So I mean, my wife and I were just talking the other day, like even things like cooking, I was saying to my wife, I was like, I can't wait because we don't know the gender yet. And I was like, I can't wait whether it's a boy to show them that like real men know how to cook,
Facts,
or if it's a girl showing her real men know how to cook. Don't have some punk ass that wants you in the kitchen.
You're gonna be the golden standard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and that's a pressure too, right? You don't necessarily want to put like, oh, well, you have to do everything perfect. Although you tell yourself that, and I'm sure I'll take my learning along the way. But I feel like I'm in the best, position, especially when it comes to the whole fatherhood thing, and where I came from, and having the best handle on that.
Yeah, that's exciting stuff, man. So like, what are you excited for right now in your life?
Aside from that,
that's a pretty big one. But
well, so from a lighter standpoint, we got a lot of stuff. Obviously, we talked about the wrestling thing.
Yeah, I want to get back into that too.
But the Q102 thing right now is cool because like there's so much in the radio industry. There's so much wet cement. Everything is in this weird phase of FM, what FM radio was to what audio consumption is now. And I love, for a lot of people it's scary, especially for the OGs. For the OGs it sucks because their best days are behind them. Where we're at right now, part of me feels like it's cool because I got a little bit of taste of how it used to be, but now where it is now and the possibilities of where we can take this. And personally speaking of where I see my career going within all this. So I'm excited about all that, and on the like urgent forefront is like this summer we've got a cool little concert we're getting ready to announce, and a little beach tour thing that we do every year where we go down the shore, which by the way I want to talk to you about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'd love to join forces with you on that front. And you know, that's one of the things that's exciting to me with our station is like what gives me a charge is making sure that Q102's brand is relevant within the city. Because in a lot of cities, you know, the top 40 station is just the top 40 radio station.
Right.
And for me, we're not necessarily that. We're a Philadelphia station. So, you know, not only do I try and make sure that we're hand in hand with the tastemakers and the cool kids, but also relevant within the exterior market. We got 1 million weekly listeners, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think about that, and I think about not only to make sure that our brand is relevant in the city and down the shore and where all the, like, you know, the rich kids are, but also what's happening in the suburbs and what's happening in Bucks County and because that's really how far our brand stretches and our platform stretches. Yeah. And that's the type of stuff that excites me too, of how I can make sure that our brand from an FM band standpoint and from a digital social media forefront is riding all that way.
Yeah, you gotta evolve. You know, like I remember like going to school every day. We're listening to like
Elvis Duran.
Yeah, Elvis Duran in the morning and like all that stuff. I like during the James Harden era when we were about to trade for him, I was listening to the radio every day. Like, like that. I feel like it's evolving, like kind of like the word you used. It's evolving and it's transitioning, and like I've been loving what you've been doing, and you and Nugget and Nico and like all them. Like I know like things kind of changed. Obviously Nugget went and he's doing his thing, but
yeah, that's my dog.
It's amazing.
Him and I go back 100 years, man. Yeah, we started together, sort of, not at the same time. He was me and like our crew were already on, and he was coming up right behind us in like the street teams and stuff. And we always kind of thought he was funny, so we always kind of took him along.
Yeah, so. Nugget's the man. I love him to death. Sammy's the man.
But he's somebody that likes to challenge the system. I like to challenge the system. I like to challenge thought process and traditional ways, because why the fuck not?
Well, it's healthy. It's right. Well, exactly. Why not? And it's like it's also healthy because you could be the person that changes the way the industry moves, if that makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? You can be like, oh shit, like, you know, Buster's starting his wrestling organization. That's gonna turn into like special guest appearance coming off the top rope, Kev Nichols, boom. All of a sudden, Nuggets coming out from underneath the fucking, you know what I mean? It's like you can to me the way like it's an opportunity to really build some personality and you could be the one that gets people excited about wrestling, which is what you love and what you're passionate about already.
Well, I back to like challenging the process. I've always been about that. Like, for example, I don't know if you've ever heard of the podcast Crime Junkies. But Crime Junkies became the biggest true crime podcast in history. And Crime Junkies was birthed in the studio in Indianapolis, where a couple of us, you know, kind of created that thing out of thin air. And then it went on to become what it became. Yeah. You know, I think that, you know, and then even like another person who was a part of that was Alex Clark. Alex Clark works with Turning Point, works with Charlie Kirk and all those guys. Her platform that she's built for herself came from the time that we spent there in Indianapolis. Not to say that she wouldn't be where she is now without it, but I know and I take pride in being a part of that inception phase of like, you know, Pete Davidson. I used to roll with that kid in New York, and I know where he was coming from when he made that leap. I was there the night that he got signed with Nick Cannon, and the rest of his career is history. And I love having those moments and those nuggets all along the way. You know. Do you have a moment in your upbringing that like you think about and you're like, oh, like this could be it? Like, do you have like a specific time where you're like, oh, this is it? Like, what do you mean there?
Like, so like, for example, like you just said, Pete Davidson, he got signed into Cannon, right? Like that's like, oh shit, like that's when I'm in the right direction. You ever have a moment like that? Yeah,
I think there's like summit points along the way of that. Like, you know, the earliest things that you feel about that is like when you get the call back. You know, I sent out 1 million tapes, 1 million MP3s, 1 million knocking on people's doors. And when you finally get the email back that's like, hello, you know, my real name's Brandon. And like, you know, I'd get those emails. Hello, Brandon. You know, we got your audio. Unfortunately, blah, blah, blah. And you'd be like, oh, but I got an email back. I'm on the way. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'd say there's gradual moments along that way. When I got to move for the job, even though it was to Fresno, California, it was still huge. I was 20 years old, and a company was taking a chance and spending lots of money to put me over here and like housing me and those sort of things.
It's like an imposter syndrome type of deal, right?
Yeah, sometimes you go, okay, do I deserve all this? And I guess that's also a charge, right? Like that's what keeps me going to the point where you're like, yeah, ball don't lie, I deserve this shit. I'm here.
Yeah, it's a self-talk thing.
Yeah.
I remember like one of my moments that I had, it was a pretty small moment, but it was cool to me. This is probably 4 years ago maybe. And I was down the shore at my mom's. We got a family house like every year. Yeah. And
what's your shore point?
Sea Isle.
Yeah, I'll see you down there.
Yeah. I'm doing every Thursday at Shenanigans.
Oh hell yeah, let's get it.
Yeah, I'm announcing that in the beginning of May. So
cool.
Maybe something we can work on with that.
Yep.
So it was cool. Like we were in our family place, and I DM'd. It was the time when you're shooting for guests, and you're just like, yo, I gotta get this person. I'm gonna get this person. Like you're kind of just shooting shots, right? I DM'd the Blind Side, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Great movie. I DM'd the actor from that movie who played Big Mike.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so I DM'd him.
And he hit you back?
So the next morning, I woke up to a DM from him. And I'm like, no fucking way. I'm like, this dude. I'm like, he answered me, and we ended up doing a Zoom call. And he's in Dallas, Texas or something. We did a Zoom call, and we just had a pod for like an hour and a half, just talking about him and his career in the movie and like little things like that. And like to me, that was like the coolest thing ever. You know what I mean?
I think to me, like I agree. Like part of what is the perks of the job along the way is that you get to scratch your own itches within life that you're, you know, where it's like, oh, I'm about to sit down with this artist and like, this artist doesn't know, but I've been rocking with him. And so this is actually cool that I get to break the fourth wall and have this conversation.
It's crazy, man.
You know, like, or a childhood front. I got to one time meet and interview Shawn Michaels. And to me,
HBK.
Shawn Michaels was the GOAT.
Yeah.
And, you know, and to a lot so so he gave me a 16-minute on-site, in-person, face-to-face interview. And it was the shit.
That's
incredible. And you know what was cool about that? Was after the interview, I was about to walk out the door, and I was like, hey, Shawn, just real quick, I mean, off the air, you know, I just want to tell you, like, I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but you were a huge inspiration in my life, so I really appreciate this moment here, you know, dapped him up. And he's like, oh, you know, that's great. So what do you do over at the station? I was like, well, you know, I'm the program director and I host. And he was like, program director? You're a little young to be a program director, aren't you? And I was like, well, yeah, I guess, but, you know, I've worked hard and blah, blah, blah. He goes, whoa. You don't have to explain your success to anybody. And I was like, dude, that's some Shawn Michaels shit.
That's great, dude. I feel like that's got to change your brain chemistry in some way.
Right? You had, like, when you've grabbed those brass rings, like, wait a minute, I got to have that moment.
That's pretty neat, man.
You know, I was in a freight elevator one time with Eminem. I didn't talk to him because, like,
he's probably an intimidating dude now.
Well, and there was so much happening, and it wouldn't have been appropriate. Plus, like, I don't got the time to say what I would want to say or even break down the conversation.
Yeah, you got to make the authentic.
Right, because what am I going to say? Hey, you remember when you remember? You know, I don't even know where to start there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so there's those moments along the way.
That's cool though, man. Yeah, I find the beauty about, I feel like what we do, we're in a hustle industry, right?
Yeah.
Like you are like in a make or break
performance-based
industry. And I think that's such a blessing, especially when it's something you love. You know, that's why in the beginning, I always emphasize like to people like, dude, find what you love in this fucking, cause you'll dial in, you'll run it. You'll have the hunger phase. You'll have the phase where like anything's an opportunity. Like
totally.
I remember like, when I first started doing like the podcast, before I even really started doing like DJing full time, I drove down the shore to Inlet and to get LeCompte on the pod. And that was my only intention.
Yeah.
And I went and got Mike's number, and like he's like, yeah, let's do it. Came to my house.
He's the man.
Came to my mom's house, and we did it in my parents' loft, and we filmed it, and it was like the coolest experience ever. Like, yo, you got LeCompte? I'm like, yeah, I fucking did. I drove down the shore for that shit, and then leading into like having Dawkins on and like him like for my 100th episode, I'm like, yo, this is like surreal. And then he's telling you you're meant to be here because you're taking in the moment and you're so grateful, and you start breaking down. He's like, yo, you're meant to be here. Like, I'm like, that's some HBK shit right there.
Straight up.
You know what I mean? So like, you find yourself in these weird situations, but like just from the hustle and the industry we're in is like it's performance based. You got to make it. You got to make that shit happen.
Yeah, I think. Well, and let's be real. Money is a big driver too, right? So when a performance based industry, what's cool about this is that there's no ceiling to what you can attain and achieve. It's addicting because the harder you work, the more you profit, and then you're like, well, shit, the harder I work, the more I profit. I'll just work more. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And also, by the way, I'd like to address that too from a radio standpoint. One of the things that I think is a myth is that there's no money in this business. And the reality is that, again, we go back to, I'm a kid that didn't graduate high school, and I've made over 6 figures since I was 21 years old in an industry that was always dying the second I got in it. Hey, well, I made 20-something years out of it and made a lot of fucking money doing it. And so from that standpoint, when I see some of my peers or some of the people that have gotten into the radio industry after me, and I hear some of that chatter and some of that negativity, it kind of reminds me of when I was coming up, and when you climb in a mountain, you see some dead bodies along the way, and you go, well, hey man, not everybody's story is the same.
Exactly. It's like one thing that I've like convinced myself and told myself is that your journey is not the same as anybody else's.
I don't know,
because you get into that mindset of like, oh, like, but he did this or they did that, and their shit went this way. Like everybody's journey is just different, man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember the day that I was at Urban Saloon for the Forged Irish Stout announcement party.
Yeah, you guys are doing fun stuff with Forged. I like to see you guys go with that. And then when McGregor comes into town, you guys go nuts.
Dude, it's crazy.
It's awesome.
It's cool. I always get the first call. Like, yo, like, I remember the guy Trevor who runs US. We gotten really close, and he was like, yo, Kev, Connor's going to be here on Tuesday. Can you, like, post about it? I'm like, no one's going to fucking believe me. I'm like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, he's like, dude, do it. I'm like, all right, bet. So, like, put out a collab post with Connor and Forge. And I was like, all right. So I was like, guys, he's going to be here. So I texted, like, Quigs and Malik, and, like, we all went to Ladder. And it was just so cool. And then Connor walks into Oscar's Tavern on a Tuesday.
Then you got pictures that look like they're AI of you guys, like, partying with
Dude, no, isn't it nuts? Like, I'm like, because I'll have, like, my photographer come in, and he's like, I'm like, yo, just make sure you get every single shot we can. And yeah, dude, and he follows all of us. We do collab posts with him. He DMs.
It's awesome.
All of us. It's cool. And it's like, it's just, to me, like I said, to take myself back to when I'm like 18, 19 years old, getting fucked up, watching him fight Eddie Alvarez at my Temple house. Like, and then I'm training with Eddie Alvarez, and it's like, dude, it's crazy. Just a little bit of self-belief and the understanding that, like, how your path is just your path.
Well, and your experiences are your experiences. So, like, Conor McGregor is somebody that, because of his personality and maybe because of things that have happened in his personal life, he gets a lot of criticism, and people have their perspective. But a lot of those people that have the things to say have never met him and have never been a part of that. Yeah. And so when you get to meet him and have your own experiences, it is different. When Will Smith came through our studio last month, it was cool as hell. From oh my God, this has been my whole life. I've known this face and this brand, right? Yeah. But he's gotten so much criticism over the last couple of years, and even when we published that interview, it was interesting because the comment section, or even people that I know, would be like, "Oh, well, did you ask him about Chris Rock?" No, I didn't. Why would I?
He slapped the shit out of a guy for talking about his wife. Who cares?
Yeah. But, like, people want to, like, go to that negative front. They want to take that, and when you've had your own experiences, it's kind of cool to.
So I want to get a little bit. I was a part of where I was going to lead to is, like, so when you were talking to Will Smith, like, What did you pick up about him? What were the things you noticed about him?
Well, he's a pro. Like, Will Smith is, first off, like, he's a brand as big as Coca-Cola and McDonald's when it comes to, like, recognition. You know, any country in the world, they would see his face or hear his voice and be like, oh, that's Will Smith. You know, it's like Snoop Dogg. And both him and Snoop Dogg, I would say the same qualities. When they walk into the room, of course, everybody knows who they are. That's already a given. You've grown up with these brands and these people, but they're on. Like, Will walked into that room. First off, before he walked in the room, someone from his security detail came in the room, literally looked all around, asked who everybody was, and all right, good to meet you. Walked out. Will walks in. Buster!
Yeah.
So there's no way that he wasn't prepped.
Right.
You know, with those sort of things. And he walked in and it was like, oh my God, you are you.
Yeah.
You know, so it was one of those things where it was like, I can't believe that, you know, and while we were interviewing, I remember sort of getting lost. First off, I loved how the interview went, and sometimes that's a pressure in its own. When you feel the pacing going right, you're like, this
nice.
is working. It doesn't always.
Yeah.
But while we're sitting there talking, I remember there was a point where he was answering one of the questions just in full, and I sort of got lost for a second, not because I was necessarily like in awe, but I was more so I forgot that I was talking to him. When you've heard a brand or something your whole life sort of talk, I thought I was just watching Will Smith.
Yeah. You thought you were on YouTube.com. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah, man. So like, that's pretty cool though. So did you find like, he was a real, like, this is gonna sound crazy, but he was like a real person, right? When you're talking to him, you could just tell like he's just a real dude. Like,
yeah, especially when we showed him the footage. You know, we showed him the footage from 1989 when he performed at the Q102 Monster concert in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and he was 21 or something, and he had never seen the footage before, and I knew he had never seen it because this was in the archives of, I just know he'd never seen this footage. And so I put it together because it was a part of a bigger video. It was like a 2-hour video of that behind the scenes of that concert, and I saw that he was in it, and I was like, this is crazy. So I took the clips of it and put it all together, played it for him. And at that point, it was really cool to see because his nephew was on his shoulders, who's now my age. You know what I mean? And it's cool to like see him all of a sudden. He even said, he's like, this is some crazy footage. And he's like, whoa, this is this person. This is this person. It was like, you got to see him like for a second put his shield down and just be like, what?
Humanize him a little bit.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Isn't it crazy that people like that gotta walk around with security and shit like that? Like, it's just, like, it's gotta check every room and you know what I mean?
I mean, but you know, probably pretty sweet too.
Nah, I mean, it's kind of a flex.
Moving presidential.
Yeah, that's some type of shit right there. But yeah, nice. I mean, listen, you've done some pretty cool things in your career so far, and I'm curious as to like the role that your mom played in your life. Like I said, family is very big for me. But I also understand that you're in the when you're in the hustle phase, you may not see them as much or whatever. But I always do take it back to like growing up and the upbringing, and so like I'm curious as to the role that your mom played in your life.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I already kind of went into how she pushed me to be in the career that I'm in because, you know, she recognized the things in me along the way of where, I mean, she even said this place that I went and took broadcasting classes at, like she said when I was like 10 years old, I think you'll like that. We'll probably send you there one day. And then eventually, when I was 18, she was like, "Look, this is what it's come down to. This is all you got."
She's like, "This is all you don't got a choice at this point."
Yeah,
you don't got a choice. Yeah.
So, but she was always the one rooting me on along the way. You know, I got in a lot of trouble. I was I wasn't a bad kid in the sense that I was I don't know. I was kind of a bad kid, dude. I got kicked out of school. I did a lot of dumbass shit. Yeah. Not to be bad, but because I always thought shit was funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that would get me into trouble a lot. And when everyone around me, and when I was real young, everyone around me had sort of written me off. A lot of family members, even like I said, the relationship with my mom's ex-husband is crazy, but a lot of times him and I weren't on speaking terms because I was always in fucking trouble. I was always in trouble. I was getting suspended. I was getting arrested. I was on probation. And I'm talking about at 15 years old. So there was a lot of things. I gave a lot of people a lot of reasons to be like, okay, this kid is going to be a fucking loser.
Yeah.
Except my mom. My mom was the only one that was like, nah, he'll be all right.
Yeah.
And, you know, and she was always the one too, like when things would happen for me in my career, I would call her and tell her, and she would be like, see, you know, I told so-and-so, da, 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 da. You know, I had an interview one time at MTV when I was 22 years old, and I remember getting that call, and I remember being on the walk, because I lived at 17th and 8th, and I was making the walk up to Times Square for this interview, and I called my mom, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, I'm on my way to go interview at MTV, and she's like, "Yep, see, I told your stepdad that we shouldn't have blocked MTV on the TV when you were a kid." You know, she was always like rooting me on along the way to sort of like make sure that I didn't prove the haters right. You know, and so I'd say that's the biggest driving force. You know, and I can't say that you know, you talk about how like, when you're in it, you don't know it. Because there's been times where I've been frustrated with my mom, too, because, again, I grew up in an interesting circumstance, and there was a good chunk of my life where I think I blamed my mom for that, and I was kind of pushing back against her. And then I think as I got older, I realized, like, first off, she was so young when she had me. She was just trying to figure shit out, dude. And I think that's the things that as I get older and now I'm about to be a parent, I start to really sort of understand more is like, well, wait a minute, like, damn, dude, like, she went through a lot for your ass.
That's a very similar thing. So my mom had me and my twin when she was 21.
Oh, you're a twin?
Yeah, I'm a twin.
Yeah, I got twins in my family.
Hell yeah, I got a twin sister. Yeah, and yeah, like like I said, looking back now, because she was like playing basketball, she had like a torn ACL while she had me in her stomach, all that stuff. And yeah, I take a look back and I appreciate that stuff, and that's why I was asking about this, like, your mom and stuff, because you know, having like the family that just wants to push you and just knows, and I liked when you said whenever you did something cool, she's like, see, I told them, and having someone that has your back, I find that shit really special, because like that's just I find it hard to come by, to be honest.
For sure. And it had to be hard, man, to take all that heat. I mean, she had principals in her face telling her like, your kid is going to work at the pizza place for the rest of his life. That was said to my mom by my principal.
It's crazy.
And I don't blame the principal for saying that shit.
In the moment,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, so I'm curious as to when you told your mom that you're gonna are having a child.
Yeah.
Was there like how did you do it? Was it a reveal, FaceTime? What was it like?
Yeah. So my mom lives in Florida, and my siblings live in Michigan. One of my siblings lives in Florida. The rest of them live in Michigan. So
she got more. Okay, y'all.
Yeah. So they were kind of all over. When we told my wife's family first. We told them at Christmas. We got them all jersey. Her mom, her dad, and her brother. We got them all jerseys. One that says Nan, one that says Pop, and one that says Uncle B. And we got them all Eagles jerseys, and they opened it up, and it was a big moment. It was great. With my family, we did like a Christmas Zoom where we sent each other presents, and we told each other not to open it until this time, and we opened it on Zoom and watched our Christmas Vacation and Christmas Story are all big movies in my family, as they are in most American families. And so we throw those on and, you know, chat on the Zoom, and that's sort of how we do Christmas on my side of the family. Well, when we were doing that, I went and mocked up a little picture that just says we're having a baby, and then turned our camera off and waited for everybody to be like, wait, where'd you guys go? And we were like, what, you can't see? Wait, look at the screen. Hold on. Do you see us now? And then launched it, and everybody was freaking out.
That's cool.
So,
I reason why I asked, I eat that shit up. I get my TikTok feed is all military homecomings and baby. And I'm like, yo, I
just want to feel something.
Just want to feel something sometimes, bro. Sometimes you want to scroll and just, you know, shed a tear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nah, but that's exciting. That's exciting stuff. And so you got siblings, right? How many you got?
Yeah, so I got an older sister. She's 2 years older than I am. And then I've got a younger brother and sister. They're twins. They're like 12 years younger than me, but my both sisters have 2 kids. They have families, and they have, and that's why I was saying earlier when it was like, even you see family members lapping you. My younger sister had 2 kids before I had one.
Yeah,
you know?
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so
that's exciting stuff, man. You're adding to the family and all that stuff.
Hell yeah.
So, like, when it comes to what you want for your career, like I said, I'm not gonna go and say I hate the 5-year question or that, that I'm gonna ask you that. I'm not gonna ask you that. I guess what my question is what has like been like your ultimate goal throughout your journey? Like what's something you're really striving for in regards to like what'll make Buster, what'll make you feel fulfilled?
I think it changes. I think in the beginning and for a long time it was just to keep the lights on, and again back to like, to prove the haters wrong. It was a lot of like working almost off a negative force where it was like, I got to do this or else, And now when things evolve, now it's more or less, it is to keep the lights on because I got things to provide for other people, so it's become a little bit more selfless.
Yeah.
Now it's like, well, hey, man, you got a job. Because it used to be like, if the boss is pissing me off, I'd be like, hey, man, fuck you. I'll dip out of here tomorrow. Now it's like, well, hold on. Let's figure this out.
Wait a second. we got a child at home. We got someone, all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. So I guess that's part of it, to be able to provide.
Yeah.
And then from a personal fulfillment standpoint, I guess that's where you get the BTA stuff, because it's like these are things where I'm now kind of doing things from a passion standpoint. Yeah, I see some dollars behind it, and that's what'll keep you going and keep the interest level into it. But also from a personal standpoint, it's a good time, and
like,
I just want to be able to provide while having a good time.
Yeah, it's like passion projects.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people that die after working their dick into the ground for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Working at a job they hate, working in a life that they don't want.
Yeah.
I can't say that I've ever had that. Every year in my life is the best year of my life.
It's amazing, yeah. I think one of the ultimate, obviously there's a consistency and also I feel like gratitude has been an ultimate driving force when it comes to anyone who's successful. I always find myself trying to be grateful for what I got as much as I can, because you can kind of lose yourself in the weeds a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree. You got to be grateful for, and again, that's another thing that changes throughout your life, right? Like, obviously I was grateful for my mom, and then you become grateful for people that give you opportunities within the job. There's a lot of people that I could shout out that, took a flyer on me, like, all right, let's hire this fucking kid, there's peers that have, hey, just so you know, this is opening up and I put your name in, those sort of things. Those that's where you got to give your gratitude towards.
Absolutely. So, like, when it comes to BTA, have you talked to Malik Joe at all about it?
A little bit. I didn't talk to him about what BTA is, but we did invite him to the Mania party. He's come to shout out to Malik. He, he's been a supporter, and we've rooted each other on. We've gone to each other's things, and he's a good dude, and he's a fun dude to be a part of things. Yeah. And hell yeah, Malik, we got to get you in a BTA shirt, dog. It's inevitable.
You have to, bro.
Yeah.
I always tell him, I was like, you're the smartest when it comes to making content. He's absolutely brilliant.
He's brilliant, and also like his heart's in the right place, and he's willing to put the work in. It was one of the reasons why we made sure that when I got Amanda Seyfried and OT the Real in studio to talk about Long Bright River, once I knew Malik was in the project, I couldn't wait to bring it up to them and watch their reaction, because I knew what their reaction was going to be. Oh my God, he's the best. So it was cool to get that on tape.
Yeah, shout out Malik. Yes, I mean, you get to do pretty cool shit with your career.
That's the point.
Yeah, that's it, right? That's the entire point of what you do.
I just want to do cool shit.
Has there been a standout for you? Obviously, you met HBK, you talked to Will Smith. Is there like any standouts to you?
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, there's so many. Obviously, there's every celebrity that you can think of that I've gotten the opportunity to not only meet, but like some of them have like a cool relationship with.
Yeah.
Like Machine Gun Kelly is an interesting one, because Machine Gun Kelly is somebody that we met each other when we were both in our early 20s, back when I was at Wired. And both of us rubbed each other the wrong way, and it was a bad John. The interview went bad.
Really?
And it was a moment that I was like, man, fuck this guy. And he was on some fuck this guy. That night, his label rep asked me to go to his show. And I was like, I ain't trying to go to his show. He was an asshole in the interview and whatever. She's like, no, please just come to the show, because what she had in the game was that she wanted me to spin his record. So she didn't want that bad moment to be that I just never support this guy, you know? So she's like, no, come to the show so you can see his live performance and just come for me. And I was like, all right, fine. So we went to the show, and it was pretty cool. He's jumping off of shit. He's breaking a Jack Daniels bottle on his chest, you know, at TLA. And after his show, he went over to the merch booth, and he's behind the merch booth signing stuff for people as they're buying, and he spots the label rep, and then he sees me next to her, and he's like, can I talk to you? And I was like, yeah. And so we wait for all this to be done. We go up to the green room at the top of TLA. He comes in the room with a joint, and he's like, dude, I fucked up today. And I was like, what? And we sit there, we talk about it, and he's like, look, you know, right now I'm battling sobriety, you know, I'm like bipolar. He's like, listen, man, like, you know, I want to redo here. Next time I come to town, can I get another interview and let's talk this out? And like, do you need a show done? Like, let's work this out. I'm like, shit, okay. So we do the next interview. Now, I had already published the first interview and got blazed in the comments by like his fans. So then we were able to toss back to that in the interview, and like we read the comments and had a good laugh, and he's co-signing me to his peeps. And then so every year after that, I got a different, unique interview and experience with him, to the point now where like over the years, like when he comes to town, his management reaches out to me like, hey,
it's a point.
We'll see you at the show, and we have moments backstage, you know, we have that cool. And that's a really cool thing, especially when you saw his career and how everything he's been through and along the way, and you talk about having your own unique perspective, because that's somebody who gets a lot of criticism, and you're like, yeah, but he's a good kid, man. Because I know, you know?
Yeah, it changes. That's pretty neat though. That's a crazy that's like, I would never expect that crossover, but
it was really hard during the Eminem beef, because I was like, damn, dude,
you listen, that track was good, Headshot was good, or like Kill Shot.
I remember when he released the record dissing M. I texted his manager Andre and was like,
don't do it.
I was like, tell him I'm proud of him. He had to do it. M took the first shot, so he had to do it. So, you know, and then I got to watch the
massacre. So I never really got to ask you this too. So like when it comes to what you do, obviously, you know, picking up a microphone and starting your career, what would you say you love the most about what you do?
There's a lot of things. And I think one of the biggest pieces, like I said, I bring up all those things that I was like involved in early in their conception period, because I think that's one of the biggest things, is like having that sense of pride of seeing things grow. I've put together concerts, those sort of things, and watched them become. Shout out to Wired Fest 2014 that still holds the record at Festival Pier for attendance. RIP Festival Pier, but we held the record on the way out because we put together Calvin Harris, Iggy Azalea at her moment, Diplo, and G-Eazy when nobody knew who G-Eazy was. Diplo stole the show. He was still early in Diplo. And we put together that show, and it blew out the whole thing. So those sort of things are badass. You know, I put together another G-Eazy show in Indianapolis, and an early Cardi B was on that card, and then they ended up working together, and I saw an interview later that said, well, you know, how we started working together was we met at a concert in Indianapolis that I booked. They met backstage at a concert, and then the song came out of that. You know, those sort of things are like, you know, I got cool things on my wall in my studio. I got plaques. I got records and projects that I was a part of that I get to go, that I get to tell my kid, like, yo, you're old man. You don't even fucking know. Shut your little ass up.
I still got it.
I think that, you know, from an ego and pride standpoint, that gets you going. And then just success, man. You know?
That's it, man.
That's success from every forefront. The money, the sort of brand awareness and how big you can get your own brand, being able to come from where I came from and make it to where I am now, and then now it's really about making sure that I can provide.
That's it, man. And so what makes a good event? I'm curious.
I mean, it depends on the event, but ultimately every event comes down to what people leave. It's always, what do they say? People don't always remember what you say, but they remember how you make them feel.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when it comes to throwing an event. All they know is how they left that place feeling. You know, and I've had good events and I've had bad events, and I know when it's good and I know when it's bad.
Yeah.
And so I'd say, you know, and what makes a good event is, you know, like right now when we're throwing this Mania watch party, April 19th, 10 Hands Fitness, we'll see you there.
That's it.
Right now, Nick and I going through point for point of every minute detail twice and double back to make sure everything's ironed out, because both of us have been through enough situations where it's like, oh yeah, we better have this in order, otherwise this is going to happen. You know, so I think, you know, just detail. Devil is in the details.
Yeah, that's it, man. Yeah, the reason why I asked is, like I said, like we're in that same space, so I'm just curious. I love to nitpick and to see what people, or not nitpick, like, you know, pick people's brains, see what they think works and what doesn't. You know what I mean?
Right, everybody's going to give you a different answer.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, when it comes to, like, with your career and what you're doing and what you've been doing, which is obviously amazing, is there anything, like, in regards to maybe what someone told you or what you've learned throughout your journey that, like, that really sticks with you? Like,
yeah. First thing that comes to mind is there's a dude I used to work for named Dion. And we would always say, when we would be in his office and there would be things we're working through, whether it's staff-wise, something externally, whatever we're working through, he would sometimes pause us and be like, okay, well, I'll tell you what. Do you want to be right or do you want to get paid? And I'd be like, oh, shit. Well, like, this comes down to two buckets.
yeah.
And sometimes you want to be right.
Yeah.
And that is what it is. And sometimes you go, it ain't worth it. I'll take the check. They can have that.
Yeah.
I think I guess that comes to mind first.
Okay.
You know, I'm sure there's other things along the way that I'm probably forgetting. There's definitely things that, you know, there's techniques and skills that I've learned from old program directors and stuff like that, old coaches that have taught me things that I implement on a daily basis at work, or things that I do on the air that I know that if I hear them in my head going, you remember you got to do this, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot that 10 years ago this asshole told me this.
I don't like superlative questions. I just was curious because I always find that there's in my own journey, there's always been like things that I think about that kind of keep me present. So I was just curious as to if there are things like that along your journey that have done that.
You want to be right or do you want to get paid?
That's it, man. Sometimes you got to put your ego to the side, and
sometimes you don't, though. Sometimes no.
That's fact.
It is what it is.
That's awesome, man. But dude, I really appreciate you for coming out and just you know, just chopping it up, man. It was a good time. I appreciate you for like being proactive, like, yo, because I wanted to get you on for a while. Obviously I know you're doing your thing, you're crushing, you're busy, and
it's all good
stuff. But yeah, man. So you got your BTA event coming up,
April 19th, 10 Hands Fitness.
If someone's trying to come to the event, give them a sales pitch, give them something. Why do they want to go to that event?
Come on, man. It's going to be the biggest WrestleMania party in the city. We went through the lengths here. We made sure that we got the licenses. This is all on the up and up. We partnered with WWE. We're running a big show here, and there's going to be games, prizes. Every single ticket, which is only $20. The link is in my bio right now at FM Buster. You click the link. The ticket's only $20. We got good food from White Bull's Barbecue. We got drinks from Two Moods Vodka Seltzers. Plus, they're going to have a full bar, so you can drink whatever the hell you want. Pour up. We want you to, because we want you to spend the money. But the ticket's only $20. And what it comes with, aside from being able to watch Mania on a big-ass projector screen in an environment where there's a boxing ring, you're going to be kicking it, is that you get to actually get in the ring, which is badass looking. It's all black. It kind of reminds me of Cobra Kai.
That's it.
Cobra Kai. So not only do you get to watch Mania, but you get to get in the ring and hold a WWE undisputed title, and a professional photographer will snap you so that you can show off on IG. You can hold the belt however you want, and then afterwards, we're actually going to raffle that title off. Someone's leaving with the strap. April 19th. The party starts at 5:30. We'll see you there.
Buster, man, I appreciate you, big dog. Thank you for coming on the pod.
Thanks
that was
for having me,
bro. That was a good John. Listen, if I wasn't working, if I gotta see my schedule, is it on? What is it? Is that a
Saturday?
It's a Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know DJs like to work on the weekends
Bro,
for some reason.
I'm crazy busy. Yeah, no, that's our work time. But nah, man. Like,
and there's gonna be more. And if you want to support, BTA is just getting started. Like I said, you got the April 19th, but also April 25th. If you want to show up to that, Northern Liberties Rec Center. I think it's a Thursday night, April 25th. It's a Friday. No, it's a Friday night. That's right. Because by the way, it's next Friday. I'm going down to the Keys next week. I'm gonna go get myself a tan, and then I'm gonna come back up, and we're gonna whoop Philly Captain's fucking ass.
That's it.
So Northern Liberties Rec Center. That ticket's also in my bio at FM Buster.
Tan Buster putting belt to ass. You heard it here first. I appreciate you coming on, big dog.
My dog.
My man. Appreciate you. That was good.